The Mass was 4 hours originally, and he cut it back to 2 at the request of his superior. When, in either instance, the bulk of the Mass, as I understand it, was not the homily. It was more when he consecrated the bread and the wine into the body and blood of Christ. It seemed like he went somewhere, like he got lost.
He was on the cross. If
Okay.
if you read that booklet, Padre Pio's Mass, it's a collection of sayings, of answers to questions more than sayings. For instance, he couldn't stay on his feet. I remember once I had to bring him a Capuchin bishop who was in Africa. And at the end of the hallway where we were standing, someone stopped Father Pio and he had to talk to them. Then when he got to us, he said, even though it was a bishop, he said, please come and sit down. I can't stand up anymore. Knowing things like this would happen, one lady said to him, you can't stand up on your feet. How do you stand at the altar for an hour and a half? He said, but at the altar, I'm not standing on my feet. She said, you're not? What are you doing? He said, I'm on the cross. See? So he was, I told you about, he was in another reality, you see. His Mass was, he just left the earth. And when you were at it, you had no conception of time. Absolutely none. It seems you were there for 5 minutes. And when you were out, the morning was always a beautiful morning, even when it rained.
Now that brings me to the next point that, or maybe you wanted to. It seemed like we call Padre Pio victim priest.
That's right.
And as I recall, when he would leave the sacristy to go towards the altar, to go to the altar, or leave his room to come down to go to the sacristy, correct me if I'm wrong, it would seem like he was getting heavier and heavier, and it was more difficult for him to walk as the closer he got to the altar.
It's not that he was getting heavier, but that he appeared as if he was weighed down by the cross.
And at times he would seem to be shaking as he'd go to the altar. And someone asked him about that, and they said, are you afraid when you say Mass? Why is it you shake? He said, no, I'm afraid of what I have to offer. For Padre Pio, and you know, there was only one difficulty in living with Padre Pio, and that was to keep him away from the altar ahead of schedule. In the morning, he was constantly pushing to get to that altar, because that was his moment during the entire day when he could work with our Lord. Say, you give me that, you give me that, you give me that. So-and-so needs this. I offer you this. I'll get that. It was a pull and tag between our Lord and he. And he was constantly being told, sit down, it's not yet the time to say Mass, sit down. And he'd look around and say, haven't you lit the candles yet? And, you know, he was, I don't want to say he was mad, but he was almost crazy to get to that altar and start this fight for souls, because that's where it took place, on that altar of sacrifice.
Like St. Teresa of Avila, who they said she was loco over the Eucharist. Padre Pio. So he sounds to me at this point, doesn't he? Like the prophets of old. So, Lord, there are only 50 people. Will you save?
Let's make a deal.
Let's make a deal, wasn't he?
Exactly, that's what was happening, yeah.
And this simple man, of a very passionate people, and you've been here in Italy and you know that Italians are passionate. He comes from an earthy village of earthy people. So he went to the Lord through his family, through the villagers, just the way we do. And so when he would be bringing people's petitions, and he said, I will pray for you, my adopted children, here and after. So he still is bargaining. He's still, we call it in the church, interceding.
Interceding, yes, but no longer saying Mass. I think that's the only thing he doesn't like about heaven, is he can't say Mass.
But you know how I picture him? I picture him with the communion of saints. There's our Lord Jesus offering up Mass, as we know. There are the angels surrounding the Lord, glorifying him. Holy, 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 they are extolling. And there's Padre Pio. Now he's itching to get up there and sacrifice the man. But he's just filled, as you were speaking, he was being filled by the Lord. It's because we know that the Mass is ongoing. We know that even though prophecy tells us that there will be a period of about 3.5 years when there will be no Mass, no sacrifice of the Mass on the earth.
That's at the end of the world. Don't worry about it.
But should this happen, Alphonse Liguori said, don't worry about it. Because our Lord Jesus will never stop offering the Mass. You know that word victim priest, and you said something about...
Well, every priest is a priest and victim.
Well, when you said he was worried about what he was offering, I'm wondering, I've been reading a great deal right now with our writing of our 10th book about the Mass. And that in the old law, the one offering the Mass, offering to the Lord, the sacrifice to the Lord, was called to be holy. And you know, the holier that the saints were, the less they believed they were holy. So, you know, very often we go up to a priest and we say, our holy priest. And he'll say, oh no, I'm not holy. And I say to him, you better be holy. But I know how they feel. And was that what you were saying also with Padre Pio? Did he feel the enormity of offering sacrifice?
I would think, and he never explained that phrase, so I think it had more to do with just offering the sacrifice. It was offering of himself, what he would have to take on to obtain what he was asking in the Mass for the various intentions that he was praying for in the Mass.
What do you mean by that, what he would have to take on?
Well, Padre Pio, for instance, you were talking about the cross before, and I remember one day in the friary, Padre Pio came down along the hallway, and he was bent over like he had a trunk on his back. And as he went down the hallway, and I saw nothing on his back, but the words that our Lord said to Genevieve Menendez came into my mind, that then, way back then, when she lived in, what, the 20s and 30s or something, that there were 28 people, or I forget the exact number, on the face of the earth, that he would bring his cross to and let them carry it for a while. I saw that happening in Padre Pio that morning. I didn't see the cross, but I saw the physical reaction of him slothing along with this enormous weight on his back, all down the hallway of the friary. You see, what he had to offer in suffering, we don't know, because, you know, here I am, the fly on the donkey's backside, we're hoeing. I don't know what I'm saying, because I'm saying words, but I have no conception of what they mean, because this man was offering his own body, his own spirit in sacrifice, as Christ had, in imitation of the divine Lamb. And that's why the fight at the altar. I don't want to be disrespectful at all about the Mass, but the Mass for Padre Pio, the sacrifice for Padre Pio, was kind of a holy marketplace. I'll give that and I get that. I'll give that and I'll get that.